Before you ask who he is, you must first ask who you are. Too often, people search outward for validation before they have even discovered the depth of their own identity. They want to know if the man they meet is strong, if he is trustworthy, if he is worthy of their respect, but they have not yet answered whether they themselves are strong, trustworthy, and worthy of respect. This is why so many fall into broken relationships, toxic cycles, and disappointment. They look for a crown on someone else's head before securing their own foundation. You cannot ask who he is if you do not know who you are. You cannot evaluate a king if you have not first claimed your place as a queen. Knowing yourself is not just about repeating affirmations or putting on confidence for the world to see. It is about doing the deep, uncomfortable work of discovering your values, your vision, and your non-negotiables. Knowing who you are begins with clarity. What do you stand for? What principles define you? If you strip away your titles, your status, your appearance, and even the opinions of others, what remains? That core is your true identity. Without it, you become like a leaf blowing in the wind, carried wherever circumstances or people want you to go. But with it, you become a rooted tree, unmoved, stable, and powerful. Too many ask, is he loyal? When they themselves are not even loyal to their own goals. They ask, does he have vision? When they have not yet defined their own. They want to know, will he respect me? But they do not yet respect themselves. Respect begins with the mirror. If you do not honor your own boundaries, your own discipline, and your own worth, no man will feel the need to honor them either. The world has a way of testing you. Life will throw challenges to see if you are serious about your identity. If you claim to be disciplined, it will tempt you with distractions. If you claim to be confident, it will put you in situations where people doubt you. If you claim to be strong, it will push you to the point where giving up seems easier. These moments are not designed to break you. They are designed to show you who you truly are. They peel away the mask you wear for the world and reveal your real character. That is why self-awareness cannot be skipped. If you don't know who you are, you will break under pressure, and when you break, people lose respect. But when you stand tall, when you prove yourself to yourself, when you build an unshakable identity through action, then you no longer need to beg for respect. It follows you. To know yourself, you must be willing to face your flaws. Too many people build their identity on denial. They tell themselves they are confident, but inside they are terrified. They claim discipline, but their habits reveal inconsistency. They pretend to be independent, but their happiness still relies on external validation. Real queens do not deny their flaws, they confront them. They look pain in the eye, admit their weaknesses, and then work relentlessly to turn them into strengths. If you avoid the mirror, you avoid the truth, and without truth you cannot know yourself. Without knowing yourself, you cannot demand respect. There is also the matter of vision. Identity is not only about who you are in this moment, it is about who you are becoming. A queen is not defined only by her crown today, but by the kingdom she is building for tomorrow. Ask yourself, where are you going? What are you building? What legacy do you want to leave behind? Without vision, you will accept anyone who comes into your life, even if they have no direction. You will cling to men who are lost because you yourself are lost. But when your vision is clear, when you know what your purpose is, you naturally filter out those who cannot walk the path with you. You no longer ask, who is he, in desperation. You ask it with confidence, with discernment, with standards, because you already know who you are and where you are headed. Identity also requires boundaries. Knowing yourself means knowing what you will and will not accept. It means being unapologetic about your standards, because your standards are not negotiable. They are rooted in your values. A woman who does not know herself compromises easily. She says yes when she should say no. She accepts disrespect and calls it patience. She tolerates mediocrity and calls it love. But a woman who knows herself does not bend to please others. She understands that boundaries are not walls, they are gates that protect her worth. And when a man sees that she is immovable in her standards, he realizes he cannot play games with her. He either rises to meet her level or walks away. That is the power of knowing yourself. It commands respect without demanding it. Finally, knowing who you are requires solitude. Too many drown their identity in noise, social media, opinions, comparisons, and distractions. They want to know themselves, but they cannot hear their own voice because it is buried under the voices of others. If you want clarity, you must spend time with yourself. Sit in silence, reflect on your thoughts, write your values, ask yourself hard questions. Who am I when nobody is watching? What do I truly believe in? What kind of life do I want to build? The answers will not come instantly, but they will come if you are consistent. And when they do, you will carry yourself differently. You will no longer chase validation. You will no longer be desperate for acceptance. You will no longer ask small questions like, will he choose me? Because the truth is, you have already chosen yourself. Too many people rush to evaluate others before they have completed the most important task, evaluating themselves. They want to know if he is loyal, if he is consistent, if he is trustworthy, but they have not taken the time to ask whether they are loyal to their own principles, consistent with their own actions, and trustworthy with their own commitments. Before you ask who he is, you must build the foundation of who you are. Because if you do not know yourself, you will always be at the mercy of someone else's identity. You will measure your worth through another person's behavior, and that is the quickest way to lose yourself. True strength comes from clarity within, not validation from outside. When you know who you are, you carry a presence that cannot be shaken. You walk into a room with energy that commands attention, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. Men notice it immediately. They see confidence, they see direction, they see someone who does not need to be completed, but has already completed herself. This is what separates a queen from everyone else. She does not search for a crown on someone else's head. She wears her own, and when she wears it with pride, anyone who enters her life must rise to meet her standard. That is why knowing yourself is not just an idea, it is a necessity. Ask yourself this: if all the people you rely on disappeared tomorrow, who would you be? Could you stand on your own? Could you hold your head high without external praise or approval? The woman who knows herself can, because her identity is not dependent on circumstances. She does not crumble when things fall apart. She becomes stronger. She does not lose direction when she is tested. She becomes sharper. Men respect this because respect is never given freely. It is earned by the way you carry yourself through life. And a woman who knows herself is unshakable. To reach this level, you must confront your inner battles. Self-knowledge is not built in comfort. It is revealed in struggle. You must look at your pain and ask, what is this teaching me about who I am? You must examine your fears and say, why does this control me? You must confront your patterns, the repeated mistakes you make, and ask, what truth am I avoiding about myself? When you face these questions honestly, you begin to uncover your identity. You are no longer pretending to be someone you are not. You stop trying to fit into molds created by society, family, or relationships. Instead, you define yourself on your own terms. Another element of knowing who you are is embracing your power. Too many shrink themselves to be accepted. They downplay their intelligence, their strength, their ambition, because they fear it will intimidate others. But here is the truth: when you diminish yourself, you invite others to diminish you too. When you stand fully in your power, unapologetic about your greatness, you teach others how to treat you. Men respect a woman who knows she is powerful and does not apologize for it. They know they cannot manipulate her with empty words or temporary gestures. She sees through games because she has clarity within. Values are another cornerstone of identity. If you do not define your values, someone else will define them for you. If you do not know what you stand for, you will fall for anything. Many ask, what kind of man should I choose? But the real question is, what kind of woman am I becoming? If your values are discipline, integrity, loyalty, and vision, then naturally you will only accept someone who mirrors or respects those values. But if you have no clear values, you will accept anyone, even those who contradict your principles. That is why knowing yourself protects you. It keeps you from wasting time on people who cannot walk with you. Boundaries flow directly from identity. A woman who knows herself sets boundaries not as barriers but as filters. She is not afraid to say no, not afraid to walk away, not afraid to lose people who cannot respect her standards. Because she knows herself, she understands that losing others is never as dangerous as losing herself. When men encounter this kind of strength, they immediately understand they cannot cross lines with her. She does not beg for respect, she commands it. And this is not done through arrogance or harshness, it is done through the quiet, immovable certainty of someone who knows her worth. There is also the matter of purpose. Identity without purpose is incomplete. Knowing yourself means asking, what is my mission? What am I here to build, to create, to leave behind? When you live with purpose, you no longer cling to others to define you. You are not desperate for love because you already live in alignment with meaning. Men see this and feel it. They know they cannot distract you, cannot derail you, cannot waste your time because your life has direction. A purposeful woman is magnetic because she is rare. She is the kind of woman men do not dare to disrespect because her life demands respect. Solitude plays a powerful role in this process. Many fear being alone because they confuse solitude with loneliness. But solitude is where you meet yourself. It is where you hear your own voice without the noise of the world. It is where you ask the questions most avoid. Who am I when no one is watching? What do I want when no one else has influence? What kind of life am I building? Until you spend time alone and answer these questions, you will always risk losing yourself in the presence of others. But when you do, when you find peace in solitude, you carry that peace into every relationship, every room, every interaction, and men notice. They respect the woman who is not desperate for company because she is already whole. Knowing who you are before asking who he is the ultimate act of power. It flips the script. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are doing the choosing. You are no longer desperate to be seen. You already see yourself. You are no longer asking small questions about whether a man will give you worth. You already have worth. And with that foundation, you stand unshakable, respected, and treated like the queen you are. Before you ever ask what kind of man stands before you, the most pressing question is who stands within you? Too often, people rush into relationships measuring someone else's qualities while they have not taken the time to measure their own. They ask if he is honest but ignore whether they themselves are truthful in their actions. They ask if he is ambitious but fail to clarify their own vision for life. They ask if he is worthy of respect, yet they have not built a life that reflects self-respect. This imbalance is why so many people end up disappointed, disrespected, or overlooked. They place standards on others that they themselves have not yet embodied. But when you know yourself deeply, when your values and identity are unshakable, the question of who he is becomes secondary because the answer to who you are has already given you the power to discern, to choose, and to command respect without speaking a word. Knowing who you are is a process of stripping away illusions. It is not about the image you project for others. It is about the reality you stand on when no one else is around. Do you truly live in alignment with the values you claim? Do your habits reflect your goals? Do your words match your actions? Many people live with a divided self. They want others to treat them like royalty, but in private, they treat themselves like beggars, accepting crumbs in life instead of demanding abundance. To know yourself means to align your private discipline with your public identity. When the two merge, you become undeniable. Respect becomes automatic, not because you asked for it, but because you embody it. The first step in knowing yourself is clarity. Clarity is the lens through which you see your life. Without it, you stumble in the dark, making choices based on temporary emotions instead of permanent values. Clarity requires asking tough questions. What do I stand for? What kind of energy do I allow into my life? What do I want to build 5 years from now? What are my non-negotiables? Without clarity, you accept anything and anyone because you have no filter. But once you know who you are, you become selective, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. A queen does not let just anyone sit beside her throne. She understands that access to her life is a privilege, not a right. Self-awareness is another crucial element. To know yourself is to know both your strengths and your weaknesses. It is not enough to say, I am confident if your confidence shatters the moment someone criticizes you. It is not enough to claim discipline if you break promises to yourself daily. Self-awareness forces you to confront uncomfortable truths, but it also gives you the power to change them. Weakness ignored becomes a chain, but weakness acknowledged becomes a tool for growth. When you know yourself, you stop hiding behind excuses. You face your flaws and you turn them into stepping stones. And when men see a woman who has faced her demons and transformed them into power, they cannot treat her like anything less than extraordinary. Boundaries also grow out of self-knowledge. If you do not know who you are, you will not know what you deserve. If you do not know what you deserve, you will tolerate disrespect. Many women lower their standards because they are afraid of being alone. But when you know yourself, solitude is no longer frightening, it is empowering. You understand that being alone with dignity is far better than being surrounded with disrespect. You no longer compromise on your values because you realize compromising on yourself is the greatest form of betrayal, and men respect this. They respect the woman who stands firm, who is not swayed by charm, gifts, or empty words because her foundation is too strong to be shaken. Another dimension of knowing yourself is purpose. Without purpose, life feels empty, and when life feels empty, people search for someone else to fill the void. This is dangerous because no man, no relationship, no external validation can fill a void created by lack of purpose. Purpose must come from within. It is the driving force that gives your life meaning, and once you live with purpose, you naturally attract people who align with it. Men see a woman on a mission, and they instantly know she is not someone they can toy with. They either rise to her level or step aside. That is the power of purpose. It creates a natural filter for respect. Knowing yourself also requires courage. Courage to be different, to stand apart, to refuse to settle for mediocrity when the world pressures you to conform. Courage to say, "This is who I am," even when others disapprove. The world often tries to box people into roles, to define them before they define themselves. But when you know who you are, you refuse the box. You break labels, you create your own identity, and you live unapologetically. Men respect courage because courage is rare. It signals strength, and strength commands reverence. The journey of knowing yourself is not a one-time event, it is a daily practice. Every decision you make, every action you take, every boundary you enforce reinforces or weakens your identity. That is why discipline is so important. Discipline is the daily proof that you know who you are. It is waking up early to build the life you want. It is saying no to distractions that do not align with your vision. It is choosing growth over comfort. Discipline is how identity becomes reality, and once discipline shapes your life, men no longer question your worth. They recognize it immediately. At the core of it all, knowing who you are gives you freedom. Freedom from chasing approval, freedom from begging for love, freedom from lowering your standards. You do not need to ask who he is until you have answered the greater question, who am I? Because when you know yourself, you already hold the crown, and whoever enters your life must recognize it or step aside before you ever turn your attention outward and question the character of someone else. You must be grounded in the deepest understanding of your own. Too many people spend their energy investigating others while their own foundation is still unstable. They want to know whether he is trustworthy, whether he has ambition, whether he is capable of leading, but they themselves have not examined their own levels of integrity, their own clarity of vision, or their own ability to lead their lives. This imbalance creates dependency, and dependency creates weakness. If you do not know who you are, you will always allow someone else to define you. And the moment you allow another person to define you, you give them the power to disrespect, diminish, or destroy you. That is why the command is simple yet powerful. Know who you are before asking who he is. Knowing who you are begins with truth. Truth about your strengths, but also truth about your weaknesses. It is easy to highlight only the good qualities, confidence, kindness, discipline, but if you ignore the parts of yourself that need work, you will carry blind spots that sabotage your growth. Many people want others to meet high standards, but they do not hold themselves to those same standards. They expect loyalty but flirt with inconsistency. They expect ambition but procrastinate on their own goals. They expect respect but tolerate disrespect from themselves every time they break a promise to their own potential. To know yourself means to hold the mirror steady, even when the reflection is uncomfortable. Only through this raw honesty can you rise into the person who truly commands respect. Self-respect is the natural result of self-knowledge. When you truly know who you are, you begin to treat yourself in alignment with that truth. You no longer allow yourself to settle for less than your worth. You no longer beg for attention because you are already whole. You no longer chase validation because you understand that the only approval that matters is your own. Self-respect is magnetic. It shapes how you walk, how you speak, how you respond to life. And when men encounter a woman who radiates self-respect, they instinctively understand they must rise to meet her level or step out of her way. Respecting yourself teaches others how to respect you, but to reach that level of clarity, you must embrace solitude. Too many drown in distractions, noise, and opinions. They spend their lives comparing themselves to others, scrolling through highlight reels of social media, or absorbing the expectations of family, society, and culture. But none of these voices can tell you who you truly are. You only discover that in the silence, in the moments where you are alone with your thoughts, your dreams, and your fears. Solitude is not emptiness, it is discovery. It is the place where you separate your authentic identity from the identity others have tried to impose on you. When you become comfortable with solitude, you become immune to manipulation because you no longer need others to fill a void. You walk into relationships complete, not desperate. And that completeness is a force that commands respect. Purpose also flows from identity. If you do not know your purpose, you will constantly attach yourself to others in search of meaning. You will ask what he is building without asking what you are building. You will depend on his direction because you lack your own. But when you have purpose, everything shifts. You carry yourself differently because your life has direction. You do not have time for games or empty promises because your mission is too important. You filter out distractions easily because you know they do not align with where you are headed. Men notice this instantly. They see that you are not someone to be wasted, not someone who will tolerate mediocrity, because your life already has a path carved with discipline and vision. Purpose gives you power, and power makes respect automatic. Boundaries are the guardrails of identity. If you know who you are, you also know what you will and will not accept. Too many allow disrespect because they fear being alone. But when you know yourself, you understand that losing yourself is far worse than losing another person. Boundaries are not about arrogance. They are about protecting your dignity. They are the line that says, "This is my worth," and it is not negotiable. A woman who sets firm boundaries communicates without words that she cannot be played with, that she cannot be taken lightly. Men respect this because they understand she values herself too much to tolerate anything less than excellence. Another aspect of knowing yourself is consistency. Identity is not something you declare once, it is something you prove daily through your actions. If you say you value health, your habits must show discipline. If you say you value growth, your routines must reflect it. If you say you value loyalty, your commitments must remain steady. Without consistency, your words lose power, and without power, you lose respect. But when your life is consistent, when your actions match your values, you become undeniable. You no longer have to convince anyone of who you are. They can see it clearly. And when men see consistency, they see stability, and stability is a quality they cannot help but respect. Courage also plays a role in identity. Knowing yourself means having the courage to stand apart, to refuse to shrink, to live unapologetically even when the world pressures you to conform. It takes courage to live out your truth when others criticize, to pursue your vision when others doubt, to hold your boundaries when others test them. But courage separates the strong from the weak, the respected from the disregarded. Men respect courage because it signals that you cannot be easily broken. You have a spine, a will, and a fire inside that no one can extinguish. The journey of knowing yourself is lifelong. It is not a moment. It is a practice. It is waking up every day and reaffirming your values. It is making decisions that align with your vision. It is refusing to betray yourself even in small ways. The more you practice self-knowledge, the more powerful you become. And the more powerful you become, the more undeniable your respect becomes. Before you ask who he is, you must know who you are, because once that foundation is built, the answer to who he is will reveal itself with clarity, and you will never again question whether you deserve to be treated like a queen. Before you measure the worth of another, you must measure the worth within yourself. Many people waste years trying to figure out if a man is strong, if he is ambitious, if he is trustworthy, but they never pause to ask those same questions of themselves. They examine his actions under a microscope, but leave their own unexamined. They set expectations for him, but none for themselves. The truth is simple: if you do not know who you are, you will never truly know who he is, because you will judge him through the lens of your confusion. But when you know yourself, when your identity, your purpose, your values, and your vision are clear, you see others for what they are, not for what your insecurity wants them to be. That is the real power of self-knowledge. It gives you discernment, and discernment protects your respect. Knowing yourself begins with identity. Your identity is the anchor that keeps you steady in the storms of life. Without it, you drift. You adapt to the desires of whoever you are with, losing yourself in the process. One moment you are bending to fit into his expectations, the next you are lowering your standards just to keep him around. But when you know who you are unshakable. You do not mold yourself into someone else's vision. Instead, you demand that anyone who enters your life respects the vision you already carry. This is why men respect women who know themselves. They sense the firmness, the unmovable presence of someone who does not need them to define her. Clarity is another key element. If you do not know what you want from life, you will settle for whatever shows up. This is why so many tolerate mediocrity in relationships. They do not have a clear vision of their own future, so they cling to anyone who gives them attention. But clarity changes everything. When you know your goals, your values, and your mission, you automatically filter out anyone who cannot match that energy. You no longer need to ask, "Is he good for me?" Because your clarity answers it instantly. A man who lacks vision will feel out of place in the presence of a woman who has it. Respect for yourself is also born out of self-knowledge. When you know yourself, you treat yourself with dignity. You honor your commitments to your health, your goals, your growth. You stop tolerating people who disrespect you because you refuse to disrespect yourself. And here lies a universal truth. People treat you according to the standard you set for yourself. If you allow disrespect, you will receive it. If you demand respect through your actions, you will command it. Self-respect is not about arrogance. It is about alignment. It is about living in a way that says, "I know my worth, and I will never compromise it." Men instinctively respect a woman who moves like this because her strength forces them to rise higher or walk away. Boundaries are the natural extension of knowing yourself. When you are clear on who you are also clear on what you will not tolerate. Boundaries are not meant to push people away. They are meant to protect your identity. They are the lines that guard your peace, your dignity, and your future. A woman who knows herself does not hesitate to enforce her boundaries. She does not apologize for them, and she does not compromise them for temporary affection. Men notice this immediately. They recognize that she is not desperate for attention, that she values herself too highly to play games. And because of this, they treat her with caution, with respect, and with seriousness. Purpose also plays a defining role in self-knowledge. To know yourself is to know why you are here, what you are building, and what you want to leave behind. Without purpose, you drift aimlessly, and when you drift, you attach yourself to people who are also lost. But with purpose, everything changes. Your energy is different. Your discipline is sharper. Your presence is stronger. Men see this, and they understand that you are not someone who can be distracted, delayed, or diminished. Purpose gives you authority, and authority demands respect. Consistency is another measure of identity. It is not enough to declare who you are. You must prove it daily. If you claim to be disciplined, but your actions lack structure, your identity loses power. If you claim to have standards but break them whenever you feel lonely, your words lose weight. But when your actions consistently align with your values, people believe you, they trust you, they respect you. Men especially recognize this because consistency is rare. And when a woman is consistent with her values, she becomes untouchable in her strength. Courage is also a core part of knowing yourself. To truly live in alignment with your identity requires bravery. Bravery to stand alone if necessary. Bravery to walk away from situations that do not honor your worth. Bravery to reject mediocrity even when it is easier to accept it. The world often pressures people to conform, to shrink, to settle. But when you know yourself, you resist that pressure. You hold your ground. You stand unapologetically in your truth. And courage like this cannot be ignored. It forces respect. Finally, knowing yourself gives you freedom. Freedom from desperation, freedom from people pleasing, freedom from needing others to complete you. You stop searching for identity in someone else's validation because you already carry your crown. When you know yourself, you no longer fear being alone because you are whole. You no longer fear rejection because you do not reject yourself. You no longer ask, "Who is he?" with anxiety because you already know that the answer will not define your worth. Instead, you stand in your power, in your clarity, in your unshakable identity, and you let the world adjust to you. That is the mark of a queen. She knows who she is, and because of that, everyone else must recognize it too.